Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. It was still dark when I heard her keys jingling against the lock. Not like she was sneaking in, but like she was daring me to be awake. She came in humming, barefoot, hair messy, lipstick faded like she'd been wearing it too long. She didn't even glance at the suitcase by the couch. Instead, she laughed. Ha! Finally leaving? I looked up, calm. These are your bags. She stopped in her tracks, like she just walked into a wall made of truth. But this story didn't start at dawn. It started 13 Thursdays ago when I found a second toothbrush in the glove box of her car. Why there? I don't know. Maybe she got sloppy. Maybe she wanted me to find it. Maybe she wanted me to snap. But I didn't snap. I washed it, dried it, placed it neatly in her sock drawer. I wanted her to know I knew, without actually knowing. Because honestly, I wasn't ready to know. I was too tired, too soft, too meek. I'm not some guy with a six-pack and a plan. I'm Daryl, a guy who clips coupons and reheats soup for dinner when she's working late. A guy who once cried because she said my voice was boring. But back to the toothbrush. That day, something in me cracked. Not loudly, quietly, like frost breaking under a boot. I started noticing things. Her perfume didn't match the one I bought her. She laughed differently around me. She wouldn't let me do laundry anymore. The neighbor's Wi-Fi name changed to Jason and Lila, and her name isn't that common. Still, I did nothing. I waited, and waited, until last night. She texted me at 9:13 p.m. Don't wait up. Staying at Carla's. Girls thing. 2 hearts. But Carla had posted a story. Dancing in fuzzy socks, face masking with her cat. Alone. I sat in the dark, staring at the screen. Then I opened the closet and pulled out the luggage we hadn't used since our honeymoon. I packed slowly. Not like in the movies. No rage. Just silence. Socks. Jeans. Toothbrush. Charger. That ridiculous robe she said made her feel like a queen. Each item folded carefully, like I was tucking away the last bits of denial. By the time she came home at dawn, I was done. The bag stood upright like it had something to say. She saw me, smirked, mocked, and I told her, "These are your bags." She didn't laugh again. But that was only the beginning, because what I found in her purse that morning turned everything upside down. Not just her betrayal, but mine too. She didn't say a word after I told her those bags were hers. Just stood there, barefoot in the doorway, the chill from outside seeping into the room like the tension between us. I watched her eyes flicker toward the suitcase, then back to me, like maybe this was a joke I was too pathetic to pull off. But I didn't blink. I didn't stutter. I'd rehearsed that moment in my head for weeks. Still, I wasn't prepared for what came next. She didn't ask questions. She didn't apologize. She just scoffed, rolled her eyes, and made a beeline for her purse. The same oversized beige one she took everywhere. Probably out of habit. Or maybe to hide things she didn't want me to see. Normally, I wouldn't have dared to touch it. But something inside me snapped the second she walked into the bathroom, muttering something under her breath about me being so dramatic. I knew I only had seconds. The zipper was already half open. I wasn't even searching, my hand just moved. Out came her wallet, a mint gum pack, and tucked between 2 receipts. A folded napkin. Not just any napkin. It was from a place called Ransom's, a bar downtown. We had never been there together. I unfolded it and felt my face heat instantly. Can't wait to do more than just drinks next time, winking face. M. That one letter slammed me harder than anything she'd said in years. M. Just a single stupid letter, but I knew exactly who it was. Marcus. Her manager. The guy she said was super married and basically allergic to flirting. The same guy who called her champ in every work photo like they were in some sitcom. I stood frozen, napkin trembling in my hand, when her voice rang out behind me. "Really?" she said, towel draped around her neck. "Snooping through my stuff now?" I turned around, no longer shaking. "You left it open." She raised a brow. "You mean my purse? Or my patience?" I should have walked away right then. I should have let the napkin speak for itself. But I couldn't stop. "Marcus," I asked, holding the napkin out, Seriously. She snatched it from me without even glancing at the note. It's not what you think. I actually laughed. For the first time in months, I laughed out loud. You're right. I thought you were lying to me. Now I know for sure. Her expression twisted into something colder than usual. She didn't flinch. She didn't crumble. She just said, "If you think packing my bags makes you a man, then congrats. Hope it keeps you warm tonight." Then she brushed past me and sat on the couch like it was any other morning, like we hadn't just crossed the point of no return. But something about the way she didn't fight. It unnerved me. I expected screaming, denial, maybe even fake tears. But this calm, this quiet, it meant she wasn't scared to lose me, and that hurt more than the cheating. But what came later, what I found on the second napkin, crumpled deeper in her bag, that's what made my knees go weak. I should have dropped it, should have zipped up her purse, handed it to her, and let her walk out of my life with that smug look she wore like lipstick. But instead, I kept digging. Not out of revenge or curiosity, I think honestly it was desperation. Desperation to find one thing, anything, that would explain why the woman I loved for nearly a decade had slowly erased me from her heart like I was some typo she regretted typing. While she pretended to scroll on her phone like nothing had happened, I crouched down and reached back into her bag. Deeper this time, past the tissues, makeup, receipts, and tangled headphones she never used. And that's when I felt something crinkled, thin, folded more carefully than anything else in there. Another napkin. This one was different. It wasn't from Ransom's. It had the logo of a hotel, the Glasswell, embroidered faintly across the top. I unfolded it, expecting another cheeky message, maybe even something graphic I'd never be able to forget. But this one wasn't romantic. It was terrifying. He doesn't suspect a thing. His money's tied up, and I've got access to the joint account until next month. You're right, once I file, he won't see it coming. Just stick to the plan. My ears rang. My vision blurred. For a second, I genuinely thought I was going to pass out. I had been stupid enough to believe I was simply being cheated on. But this was a setup. A full-blown exit strategy. And I was the fool funding it. I looked at her, still lounging on the couch like it was a Sunday afternoon and we were about to binge a cooking show together. How many nights had I sat beside her while she planned my erasure? That's when it all clicked. The sudden concern about our finances. Her asking me to just sign the new banking forms for refinancing. The mysterious overdrafts. The second credit card she swore was for emergencies. The business trip that never had an actual return flight booked. She wasn't just planning to leave me. She was planning to financially gut me before she did. I stood there, napkin in hand, and asked the dumbest question I've ever asked in my life. "Who are you, Lila?" She didn't even look up. "Don't be dramatic, Curtis. I found this," I said, holding the napkin like it was radioactive. "At what point were you going to tell me?" Now she looked up. Her eyes didn't soften. If anything, they sharpened. "You went through my private things? That's what you're upset about?" My voice cracked. "You're plotting to drain my accounts, and your concern is about your damn privacy?" She stood up, walked over, took the napkin out of my hand like she was handling a grocery list and crumpled it. "You always needed everything spelled out, didn't you?" Couldn't breathe. My knees buckled and I sat down hard on the floor like the weight of the truth was too heavy to carry anymore. And then, as if she hadn't already shattered what little was left of me, she whispered, "You're just making this easier for me, you know?" I looked up at her, tears threatening but not falling. I didn't recognize her face anymore. The woman who used to fall asleep on my chest, who once told me I was home, was now standing over me, a stranger wearing her skin. But the worst part? I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. I was still just begging inside. Begging for this all to be a lie. But what I didn't know was that this napkin was only one piece of a much bigger plan. And someone else, someone I never would have suspected, was part of it too. I sat on the cold hardwood floor for a long time after she crushed that napkin and dropped it like it was meaningless. It wasn't just a message, it was evidence. And she treated it like gum wrapper trash. She didn't even deny it. That's what made it worse. No fake crying. No rushed lies. Just silence. As if I was the one who should feel guilty for finally seeing the trap she'd been setting. My mind was spiraling. My hands were sweaty. But I wasn't done. I opened the banking app, the one she rarely touched because, as she put it, finances give me a headache. Turns out the headache was all mine. 3 transfers. Each marked investment consulting. Each just under the threshold that would have triggered alerts. All sent to a single name. A name I hadn't seen in years. Nate Reynolds. My best man. That hit me like a punch in the lungs. Nate and I had known each other since college. He helped me move into my first apartment. Gave the toast at my wedding. He was there when my dad died, and he cried harder than some of my family. And yet, here he was, siphoning money from my marriage like a parasite in a tailored suit. I remember Lila used to hate him, said he was too flirty, too smug, always had an off vibe according to her, and I believed her. I even distanced myself from him a bit after we got married, thinking maybe she saw something I didn't. But now I wonder, did she actually hate him? Or was that just cover while they schemed together? I called him. Couldn't help it. I needed to hear his voice. Maybe I was still clinging to some naive hope that there was an explanation, that it wasn't what it looked like. The phone rang twice before he answered. Kurt. His voice was too casual, too normal. Man, I didn't expect to hear from you this early. I skipped the pleasantries. You've been getting money from my account. There was silence on the line. Not even a breath. Nate, I snapped. Tell me what the hell is going on. Still nothing. Then finally, you weren't supposed to find out like this. Like this. Like there was a right way to learn you're being betrayed by your wife and your best friend. Is it her? I asked, voice cracking. Are you too? He didn't answer. And that was answer enough. I hung up before I could say something I'd regret. My chest felt like it was caving in. I turned to Lila, who had apparently been listening the entire time, arms folded, smirk returning to her face like it had never left. Now you know, she said. I wanted to tell you after the divorce papers were signed. Clean. Civil. You and Nate. I whispered. How long? She shrugged like I'd asked how long the milk had been sitting out. About 6 months. Maybe longer. Who cares? I did. But clearly that didn't matter. And the money? I asked. Just rearranging things, she said, as if that made it less criminal. We figured we might as well start the next chapter. Financially stable. Not me and her and him. The strange, the moment your heart stops breaking and just goes numb. That was the moment for me. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I just stood there in the center of our living room, surrounded by memories that didn't mean a thing anymore. But the worst wasn't even that she'd been sleeping with him. It was that they'd been planning a life. My life without me. But here's the part she didn't see coming. And Nate definitely didn't. Because I'd been preparing something too. For days I'd been numb. Moving through our house like a ghost in someone else's story. It didn't feel real. My wife cheating with my best man. Draining our accounts. Planning her exit like a corporate merger. But that numbness began to fade the second I realized something she hadn't yet. She thought I was weak. And because of that, she underestimated me completely. They say betrayal reveals truth. And in this case, the truth was this. I wasn't just some clueless, spineless husband she could manipulate. I was the one who set up the financial structure of our life. The house? In my name. The joint accounts? I had quietly converted them to view, only on her end 2 weeks ago. The retirement portfolio she thought she was draining? That was a decoy account. I had created it during a brief period of clarity last year when her behavior first changed. The real savings? Hidden in a trust under my mother's maiden name. I didn't plan to use any of it to win. I just didn't want to end up broke and broken at the same time. That was my one quiet rebellion while she giggled on late-night calls in the kitchen, thinking I was asleep. The moment I knew she was serious about taking everything, I made backups of everything: emails, transfers, phone calls, credit card statements. I printed screenshots, uploaded voice recordings, and every single one of them was now in a folder titled Lila Plan. locked in a cloud drive she didn't know existed. That night, after the confrontation with Nate on the phone, I opened my laptop and clicked send on an email I had been drafting for weeks. It went to 3 recipients: my lawyer, my bank advisor, and her father. Yes, her father. See, Lila had always said her dad was old school. She rolled her eyes whenever he talked about marriage being sacred and loyalty being everything. But I respected the man. He helped us with the down payment on our house. He toasted us with genuine pride at our wedding. And I knew, deep down, he'd never forgive her for what she was doing. By noon the next day, my phone rang. It was her father. All he said was, "Meet me, alone." We sat in his garage. He didn't yell, didn't ask for proof. He already knew something was wrong. Maybe he always did. "She stopped being herself months ago," he said, not meeting my eyes. I just didn't know how far it had gone. Then he looked at me and asked the most painful question anyone had asked me yet. "Do you still love her?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say she disgusted me. But the truth was Messier. I loved the version of her that used to bring me soup when I was sick. The one who left notes in my lunch bag before work. But that version didn't exist anymore. She'd been replaced by someone I wouldn't even trust to water my plants. "No," I finally said. "I love who she used to be, but I don't even like the person she's become." He nodded. "Then finish this. Don't let her take your peace too." I left with a heavy heart but clearer focus. When I got home, Lila wasn't there. Her keys were gone. So was her suitcase. I didn't panic. Instead, I went to the safe and pulled out a printed copy of every message, every transaction, every receipt. I laid them on the dining table like trophies. That night she returned, but she wasn't alone. And what happened when they walked in together changed the entire story. I heard the car before I saw it. A sharp engine hum, tires crunching across the driveway like they belonged there. I peeked through the curtains and felt my jaw tighten. It was Nate's car. Of course it was. She didn't even bother hiding it anymore. Not that she had to. In her mind, I was already erased. She'd already skipped ahead to the next chapter while I was still reading the sentence she tore out. But what they didn't know was that this wasn't just my house by paperwork. It was my stage now. Everything was already set in motion. They were walking straight into the scene I had scripted down to the last detail. The door opened without a knock. Lila walked in first, flipping her hair off her shoulder like she was stepping into a salon. Not the wreckage of our marriage. Nate followed her in, wearing that same smug expression he always had, the one I used to mistake for charm. She saw the documents spread out across the dining table and rolled her eyes. "Really, Curtis? You printed out your little heartbreak scrapbook?" I didn't move, just stared at her, then at Nate. "You lied to me," I said, voice flat. "For months. Used me. Took my money. And now you're flaunting it like a high school romance?" Nate stepped forward, arms crossed like he was playing lawyer. "Come on, man. This doesn't have to be messy." That's when I smiled. The kind of smile that isn't happiness, just clarity. "Oh, it's already clean," I replied. "I've got records of every transfer, every message, your voice on a recorded call. And thanks to Lila's brilliant napkin planning, I've even got intent to commit financial fraud." Lila's face twitched. "You wouldn't," she began. I cut her off. "I would. And I did. My attorney already has everything. So do the bank fraud investigators. Oh, and your father. He knows, Lila." That last part hit harder than I expected. She actually went pale. "You involved my dad?" "I didn't have to," I said. "You did that the moment you decided to become someone he wouldn't recognize." Nate was trying to stay calm, but his grip tightened on the back of a chair. "You think anyone's gonna believe you over her? She's got friends. Witnesses." "Great," I said, pulling out my phone. "Let's start with the witness who signed off on your fake wire transfer last month." "Oh, wait. That was you, wasn't it?" Silence. Thick. Stifling. Then Lila did something that almost made me feel sorry for her. She laughed. Not cruelly. Not mockingly. But nervously. Like someone who finally realized they weren't holding the cards anymore. "You were never this smart before," she whispered. "I didn't think you had it in you." I shook my head slowly. "That was your biggest mistake. You spent so long treating me like I was nothing. You didn't even consider what I'd do once I had nothing to lose." She looked around, like she was seeing the house for the first time. Her suitcase still stood in the corner. My printed evidence laid out like courtroom exhibits. And her new life standing beside her, looking more like a deer in headlights than the man she traded me for. I walked over, picked up her suitcase, and handed it to Nate. "Help her carry it," I said, "since you're so good at taking what isn't yours." They didn't say a word as they walked out, but I knew it wasn't over, because while they thought they were escaping, something far bigger was waiting just around the corner. Something neither of them had accounted for. For a few days after they left, the house was still. Too still. No footsteps in the hallway. No wine glasses in the sink. No perfume wafting through the bedroom. Just silence and dust and the sound of my thoughts echoing off the walls. I thought maybe that was the end of it, that they'd disappear into whatever fantasy they had planned. Maybe a beach town apartment, a fake startup, brunch dates where they laughed about poor Curtis. But I'd learned something dangerous. When people think they've won, they stop covering their tracks. It started with a letter, not an email, a real envelope, handwritten, from someone I didn't know. It was addressed to me, care of my full name, Curtis Vernon Milner, in tidy, careful script. I opened it, expecting junk or some legal notice. Instead, it was a confession, from a woman named Jenna. She said she used to work at Lila's office. Claimed she'd overheard conversations, seen texts pop up on Lila's phone from a contact saved under maintenance, which was actually Nate. She said she was never comfortable with what was going on, especially when she overheard Lila saying she had a dummy Curtis plan in case I found out too soon. Jenna apologized. She said she couldn't stay silent anymore. That letter hit harder than I expected. It wasn't about the content. It was the fact that a stranger cared more about what was done to me than the woman I married. 2 days later, another letter came. This one from someone named Trevor. Apparently, he worked at the same investment firm where Nate had been moving the consulting fees. Trevor wrote that he was quitting, and before he left, he wanted to send me some light reading. Attached was a copy of an internal report, flagged transactions, inconsistent authorizations, and something called a pending ethics inquiry. Nate's name was all over it. I sat there, reading the same line over and over, subject to legal review pending internal fraud investigation. Suddenly, everything I'd planned, the document backups, the calls to my lawyer, even the meeting with her father, it all felt like preparation for something much bigger. And not just bigger for me, bigger for them. Because the world around them had started to notice. Quietly, behind their backs, cracks were forming in their perfect little scheme. And I wasn't even the one pushing anymore. Then came the call. Lila. Blocked number, but I answered out of morbid curiosity. Her voice didn't sound like it used to. No more ice. No more confidence. She sounded exhausted. Panicked. "Curtis, we need to talk." I didn't say anything. "I know I hurt you," she went on. "But things are getting complicated. Nate, he's not who I thought. He's doing things I didn't agree to." I almost laughed. Now she was pulling the scared act. "You mean he's doing exactly what you two planned together?" I said calmly. No, Curtis, listen. He's gone off script. He's moving money without telling me. He's talking about leaving the country. I didn't sign up for this." That's when I felt it. Not joy, not triumph, but a strange peace. Because this wasn't my fire anymore. They'd lit it. I just stepped away and let the wind do the rest. She kept talking. About fear. About how everything was unraveling. About how she missed how simple things used to be with me. I didn't buy a second of it. "You're calling me now because you're scared," I said. "Not because you're sorry." There was a long pause. "You're right," she whispered. "But I don't know who else to turn to." She turned to me, all right, but not as a husband, as a backup plan. And that's when I decided how this was really going to end. I didn't answer her right away. I let her sit in the silence. The same kind of silence she used to punish me with when she'd walk in late and say nothing. or when I asked if we were okay and she'd shrug like my feelings were an inconvenience. Only now, the silence belonged to me. "Curtis," she said again, her voice small. "Can we just meet? I don't want to lose everything." I took a deep breath and said, with more calm than I thought I had left in me, "You already did. You just didn't notice when it happened." And then I hung up. That was the last time we spoke. Within 2 weeks, the fraud investigation into Nate's transfers escalated. He was removed from the firm, and I later heard through legal contacts that he tried to shift blame onto Lila. Of course he did. There's no honor among thieves, just shifting sand until someone sinks first. From what I gather, she's now stuck in the middle of it all, trying to clear her name while the person she bet everything on vanishes into smoke. But me, I'm still here. I moved out of that house. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. I didn't want to live among ghosts and wallpaper memories. I found a modest apartment by the water, nothing flashy, but peaceful. My days are quieter. My nights no longer filled with waiting and wondering. I even started seeing a therapist, not because I'm broken, but because I finally decided I deserve to be whole. Sometimes I still catch myself wondering who she used to be, before the lies, before the plotting. But then I remember, she made her choices, and so did I. I chose me, and that was the first real choice I'd made in years. So, to anyone listening who's ever felt like the quiet one, the overlooked one, the soft-spoken partner who's been made to feel small, just know this: strength doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like walking away without slamming the door. Sometimes it looks like healing. Thank you for letting me tell my story. Now I want to hear from you. What's a moment in history you wish you could have witnessed firsthand? A turning point? A mystery? A dramatic twist? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is Reddit Confessions, where the quiet voices finally get heard.